This is Boats of the Thousand Islands, the show about every kind of watercraft on the Great St. Lawrence River. Your hosts are Robbie and Terry, both 15. Every week they break it down so you actually get it.
Welcome to the show about every kind of watercraft on the Great St. Lawrence River. I'm Terry.
And I'm Robbie. And today we're talking about the Zodiac, the inflatable boat that somehow ended up everywhere, from French beaches to Arctic ice floes.
Right. And when I say everywhere, I mean Jacques Cousteau was using one to film sharks while most people were still arguing about whether seat belts were necessary.
Classic Cousteau. He basically made the Zodiac famous in the 1960s by strapping one to his research ship Calypso and going absolutely wild.
But the boat itself is older than that. Pierre de Breteuil invented the rigid hull inflatable design back in 1934 in France.
1934. That's the same decade as the first Batman comic, Inflatables and Batman, two things that just refuse to go away.
The genius idea was replacing a heavy wooden hull with inflatable rubber tubes along the sides, so the boat becomes almost impossible to sink.
Even if water pours in over the side, those tubes keep floating. You basically have to try really hard to drown a Zodiac.
The St. Lawrence has tons of them: Coast Guard, marina rentals, research vessels out of Kingston. You've probably seen one buzzing past without even thinking about it.
They're the little boats that hang off the back of big boats. The marine world calls them tenders, which sounds like something you'd order at a restaurant.
Chicken tender, beef tender, inflatable rubber tender. One of these is not like the others.
The tubes are made from a material called hypalon, which is a synthetic rubber that resists UV rays, salt water, and also apparently most human mistakes.
Which explains why the Canadian Coast Guard uses Zodiacs for rescue operations. They can launch fast, they're stable in rough chop, and they don't care if you bang them into a dock.
Meanwhile, I'm nervous parking my bike. These things just bounce off things and keep going.
A standard rescue Zodiac can hit about 30 knots, which is roughly 55 kilometers per hour on the water. That is moving.
For reference, the fastest a duck has ever been clocked swimming is about 10 kilometers per hour, so the Zodiac wins that race by a lot.
The ducks on the St. Lawrence are very relieved they don't have to compete.
Militaries figured out fast that inflatables are perfect for sneaky operations, light, quiet with the right motor, and you can deflate them and hide them in a bag.
Special Forces teams literally pack full combat boats into backpacks. That is a sentence I enjoy saying out loud.
Navy SEALs, British SAS, Canadian Special Operations, they've all used Zodiac-style craft for decades. The river is a tactical environment, apparently.
The Thousand Islands themselves have a military history, so it's not even that weird to imagine a stealth inflatable slipping between Zavajoan Island and Hill Island at 2 in the morning.
Please don't do that. That is just a hypothetical Coast Guard people.
But civilian Zodiacs are everywhere too. Whale research teams off the Gaspé use them, divers use them, and your uncle who bought one at Canadian Tire uses his to go fishing and feel adventurous.
Shout out to all the uncles, living their best inflatable lives.
The company Zodiac Marine is still around and still French, still making boats in several sizes from about 2.5 meters up to about 9 meters long.
9-meter inflatable. At some point, you have to ask yourself if you've just invented a very long pull toy.
A very fast Coast Guard certified military grade pool toy, sure.
One reason these boats work so well on the St. Lawrence specifically is the river can get choppy fast, especially in the upper section near us.
The inflatable tubes act like natural shock absorbers, so the ride is actually softer than a rigid aluminum hull in the same waves.
It's like the difference between riding a bicycle with no suspension on a gravel road versus one with suspension. Your spine appreciates the difference.
And because the hull is basically flat or very shallow, Zodiacs can operate in really shallow water, which matters on a river with sandbars and rocky shoals.
The St. Lawrence has plenty of both. Rocks that have wrecked ships for 300 years are suddenly a lot less scary in something that just bounces off them.
You still shouldn't hit rocks, just for the record.
Officially, yes, but the boat forgives you more than a fiberglass hull would.
One wild fact, there are Zodiacs in space. Well, not in orbit, but NASA's recovery teams used inflatable boats to pick up astronauts after splashdowns during the Apollo era.
So the same basic design that Cousteau used to film fish also collected moonwalkers from the Pacific Ocean. That is a résumé.
Most versatile boat ever invented, honestly. War, science, rescue, fishing, astronaut pickup.
The St. Lawrence River sees all of those uses except maybe the astronaut part, but give it time. Things get weird up here.
Every summer, you can rent one at marinas from Brockville to Gananoque. They're considered beginner-friendly because they're so stable and forgiving.
Stable, forgiving, bouncy, and they pack into a bag. The Zodiac is basically the golden retriever of boats.
That is the best description I have ever heard, and I will be stealing it.
Next time you're on the river and you see one of those little rubber boats blasting past, you'll know it has a history that goes from World War II beaches to ocean research to right here in the Thousand Islands. Worth it.
Pretty good legacy for something that looks like a giant bath toy.
The best things always do. Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep your eyes on the water, and we'll see you next week on Boats of the Thousand Islands.